about what are the rules, how do we follow them properly. I just want to do one more quick overview here. We have met quorum by the skin of our teeth today, and this goes to show like how important it is just to figure out. Let me know ahead of time so we can figure out this, if we are going to meet quorum, an agenda that does not preclude us from making progress on our commission, basically. So yeah, just let me know. But Marco, I'll hand it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Chair Krupa. So good evening. My name is Marco Rivero. I'm the Park and Recreation Commission staff liaison, and welcome to the May meeting. I would like to remind our attendees that the PRC meeting will be recorded, and that just started. We would ask that commissioners, presenters, and attendees please mute your microphones and turn off your video feeds if you are not speaking. For those attending via telephone, you can mute and unmute your microphones by dialing *6. And the top toolbar contains a raise your hand function in case a commission member or presenter has a question during the meeting. Commissioners and presenters may share their screens using the share content box above. The chat box will also be checked routinely, mainly to address logistical questions or items that may come during the meeting. During the public comment period and during the agenda items discussion, the chair will recognize virtual participation first. So Melissa and others on the commission joining us virtually will be recognized first. Then in-person attendees will be able to comment. As way of information, we will be holding a public comment period at the beginning of the meeting. Each public commenter will have up to 3 minutes for their comment, and I will signal to the speaker once time is up. And I will admit, yeah, all right. And before I hand it over to our chair, I do want to briefly remind folks about our electronic meetings policy and actually what that means. We spoke about it just a little bit right now as it relates to quorum. Since there is a physical quorum of 8 members or more, we don't have this issue, but in the case that we do have this issue, if physical quorum is not met, the county attorney's office has advised that those members who are attending virtually either leave the meeting or stay on, but can only view the meeting as an observer. The risk of the second option is that PRC members may still be personally liable in case there are any FOIA violations raised or documented. PRC members cannot attend as public commenters in this setting. In other words, your participation is based solely on as commission members. So if the physical quorum is not met, that opportunity cannot be provided to you per the policy and what the Commonwealth allows. And I would encourage any PRC members either joining us online or in person to please contact the County Board Office liaison to County Board Member Takis Karantonis, who's our liaison to this commission, Sandra Calixto Mendoza, if you have any potential questions or any other issues that you might want to raise related to this policy, the county attorney's guidance, and anything that the Commonwealth of Virginia allows for this sort of setting. And with that, I will hand it over back to our chair.
Just one question on
Sure.
that. What is the impact of not having a quorum? What can we do without a quorum?
We can listen to the presentations, but we can't act. So
We can't vote.
We can't vote.
But we
can't.
never vote.
We do on certain things like
Okay.
naming and pushing those forward, processes forward.
Okay.
And we also can't like adopt the meeting minutes, which is fine. Again, we like push. We can just push forward like
Okay.
that. So it's not.
It's pretty minor.
It's not. We're not one of those commissions where it's essential. I agree. But it is kind of silly because I do want still to hear participation from everyone, right? Virtual or not. We all agree.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
don't
crazy.
plug your ears and turn off the recording for a second, but we all agree that the policy is kind of silly. The problem is that we must meet an in-person quorum. Once we do that, all hinges unlocked because Melissa and other virtual participants can participate. All that jazz is good. If we don't meet the physical quorum, then we're really limited on discussion. And to me, that's the limiting factor.
Yeah.
Including discussion that could be provided by members who are attending virtually. Yep.
I also believe when we have issues that we wish to express our opinions to the county board, we write letters.
That's right.
We have some very important issues coming up on the forestry and natural resources management plan. And if we miss a vote, we have missed our window to present our case before the county.
So we
I mean,
also,
we could go in public to a public meeting and reiterate that, but our formal comments are passed around the table in
this
committee
conference.
board meetings before anybody stands up in public. So you don't want to miss that chance. So our being able to discuss and vote on what we want to present to the board is very important.
And beyond that, even discussion of like representatives of the PRC. So like we couldn't do like an assignment to a new SPRC as part of this, which we ran into last month actually when we didn't meet quorum. So I sent out a desperate email before the meeting so that we didn't run into the problem because I kind of anticipated we were going to meet quorum. So that's the kind of stuff that really is limiting to us. When and otherwise we would just be able to like have a conversation like normal people. We're limited by what we can actually discuss.
I just want to put in a qualification that it's not mandatory that we have a vote on every letter. We often do not.
No.
I mean, we like to do that, but it's not. mandatory.
So we wouldn't be able to do like,
I don't want
okay,
that to be
yeah.
something that
We wouldn't be able to do like, okay, we heard a presentation on X today. Jill's gonna write a letter for X and Peter and Sarah and Colt will be the editorial. We wouldn't be able to do that, but we could finagle it by doing it over email outside of the meeting. That's very silly, Peter. For everyone, very silly, but
Yeah,
in order to
don't
follow the
accidentally
policy,
make us have to do that.
yeah. So TLDR, if you're not gonna make the meeting, just like any other reason, please let me know ahead of time so we can craft an agenda that, and Jill, Marco, and I meet on the day that we have these meetings every month. And so we can always be flexible with the agenda so that we can maximize our time together for it, the people who are in person, even if we don't meet for them. Yeah, okay, let me do introduction then. Are we good on that topic?
And actually, before we
Yeah.
continue on with the commission consideration of the minutes, maybe we should also
Yes,
introduce
I
our
wanna do
new
that.
commissioners, yeah?
Yes, so Nelson is not with us today and I don't see him online. I hope we can catch him next month. But we have 2 new commissioners added to our commission as of last month. So we have Alex here joining us. Alex, do you want to give like a 1 minute on you, your background, bringing you to Arlington?
My name is Alex Sanders. Decades. I live in Arlington Forest. I've spent about 12 years on E2C2 and cycle and C and I was on Seaborg as well and cycle 17. Son was a little younger, now he's a little bigger. I can afford to spend a little more time on these sorts of things. And I've been very engaged in environmental affairs. For a while, it was my primary concern and stormwater too. Of Armand and looking forward to participating.
Well, thank you,
Welcome.
Alex. We're really excited to have you and Nelson on the commission. I also just want to mention, I said at the beginning, but our very own Sarah Barlick has graduated from graduate school and we're really proud of her. And for the time being, she's staying in Arlington. Yeah, so thank you
Yes.
for your participation, Sarah, as always too.
Yeah.
So yeah. We do have some upcoming appointments and retirements coming up. We'll talk about that in future. In other business, we're gonna talk about field trip today, good
Yes.
news on field trip. So big, exciting, good meeting today. I think we're ready to kick off. So I'll start off with consideration of both the March and April meeting minutes. Again, because we didn't meet quorum last month, we're approving both sets of minutes. So with consideration, not hearing any opposition. Oh, Nelson's here. Can we take a pause?
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. Hello, take a seat.
I'm sorry about that. I really overestimated my ability to find this place.
You're fine, you're fine. We're normally in this room, so now that you found it,
Yes.
you got it. Not to put you on the spot, I know you just came in, but we just, Alex just gave a quick introduction, if you wouldn't mind, just a minute of your involvement in Arlington and what brings you to PRC, and yeah.
Yeah, of course. So hi, everyone. I'm Nelson. Just joined the commission. I moved to Arlington in August for work right out of college. And on some email lists about things happening throughout the community and said I want to get involved with something and looked through that list and said Parks and Rec seems like a really great place to learn a lot about the community, get involved. I use the parks every day. I love them. I think that Arlington's had incredible green spaces that I've been able to utilize a lot since I moved here. And looking forward to really getting involved with the commission and to see how it works behind the scenes.
Well, thank you, Nelson. We're excited to
Yeah,
have
of
you.
course.
Yeah.
Dipter? Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Yes.
And I'm also there.
Oh, okay.
Karen Guevara.
Okay.
Are
You're not on Parks and Recreation?
No, just planning commission.
Oh, wait, are you
That's in the third.
on the right floor? Are you here for the LPRC meeting? Yeah.
I'm in the wrong
Yeah.
floor.
Should be 311. That's okay. Elizabeth directed me down here. Yeah.
11, and you can take these stairs right here, 311, or the elevator.
That's embarrassing.
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, okay, we just did it.
Yeah, you're good. No
I
worries.
introduce myself.
Good to have you. Okay. All right. Anyone have any opposition to the meeting minutes for both March and or April? Otherwise, they are approved. Let's go for it. Okay, great.
Right.
Thank you all. All right. So let's get in to our agenda. So, public
Public
I'm so
comment period?
sorry.
Yes, we have two public commenters signed up to speak, and the first one is Mr. Brian Siegerts.
Great. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to speak. I'm Brian Sigwartz. I'm the co-president of the Arlington Heights Civic Association. And I know you're going to be hearing about the Career Center use permit here in a minute by APS and county staff. Just wanted to say, we've been long supportive of APS. We actually have more APS schools within our neighborhood than any other in Arlington. That being said, we do have some significant concerns with the Career Center use permit. And I believe we sent around a letter earlier, so hopefully you all received that. But if anyone wants a copy of the letter later, please let me know. But a lot of our concerns, deal with issues you're all, focus on as well. Mainly the lack of green or open space in the use permit. What this use permit has is constructions of new buildings. It's going to maintain 3 large buildings, which is really going to cut into the amount of green or open space on the site. So we would like to see the use permit modified to show final condition of no more than 2 buildings, which is the eventual intention of APS, but it's not showing up in this use permit. So right now, for example, talking about some of the green and open space we're losing large open space that's been used by both our neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods. There's an apartment building right across the street from Career Center that doesn't have any sort of playground, and they use the playground a lot. So we're losing playgrounds, we're losing basketball courts, we're losing a diamond field, and as I mentioned, kind of the open space. So with maintaining all those buildings, it's really going to cut back on the usability of this area and the parks. And we also want to see, open access to the parks, make sure that playgrounds remain unlocked. We've had issues with that in the past with the Montessori school locking the playground. We want to make sure the fence is only 4 feet and not 6 feet to make it more accessible. We also want to see that there's proper sidewalk and streetscaping around the entirety of the site. There's also some environmental questions about this building. So, those are our main focuses, and it really does come down to ensuring that there's enough green and open space for this location, and that's been our main focus, and it's a concern that's been shared with other neighborhoods around Columbia Pike as well. So I know some of the other ones are getting ready to weigh in too. So with that, I think that's it for me. And once again, thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Brian. And we also passed around your letter that you forwarded to me for all the commissioners here, just to keep in our back of our mind. We will be writing a letter on this item, and so we do want to represent the community voice in that letter. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next commenter is Dr. Bernard Byrne.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
The Department of Parks and Recreation is presently in the final phase of its design for the Upper Bluemont Park project. Joshua Sirk is the DPR's principal planner for the project. The project is located immediately south of Wilson Boulevard near 4 Mile Run. It will create, it contains a number of tennis courts, so you're probably familiar with it. It will create a large auxiliary building that will have restrooms and other features. It will also add a tennis practice court. Most importantly, the project will radically change the design appearance of the present condition. The project had two alternative designs. Project one would have basically maintained the same condition with some minor changes. However, DPR selected out design two after the public engagement process. This design will destroy a designated Monarch Way station near the south end of the parking lot, north of the site's ranger office and restrooms. A prominent sign on the site identifies the Monarch Way side, so people know about it. However, the project page contains a diagram of the area's existing condition, but does not show this Monarch Way station. This was incompetent. The sign was there. Well, so I was probably the only one who commented they need to replace this way station or keep it. The final project does not do that. I've written to Joshua Cirque several times, no response. This Monarch Way station contains much common milkweed, Sepia syriaca. The project will therefore contradict the county board's 2016 Monarch pledge, which states, whereas for decades, Arlington County has managed urban landscapes and public lands, as well as wildlife habitats with native plantings, including milkweed. Well, here they're taking out it. There are two Monarch Way stations in this park. One is being retained, that's closer to Wilson Boulevard. This one's at the other end, the south end of the parking lot near the restrooms. The car is presently making a U-turn around that. To make space there just for that waste, for the restroom, basically, they have pushed this, they've taken out, they've moved the U-turn that the cars make and taken out the Monarch Way station. There's no good reason for this. At least they could replace it somewheres. They could get rid of that practice tennis court, for example, and replace it a similar size. Please, therefore, as there are no plans to replace it, please, therefore, try to ensure the project will retain or replace its important feature. I mean, this is what's known as, biophilia, et cetera, But the planners, if some planner looks at the thing, it doesn't see a sign, this is Monarch Way station, this is the result. And we really need to do something to stop this. And Joshua Cirque is the person who's responsible for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne. And we'll be talking about this topic today. So we can continue to ask questions. Are there any other public commenters on the line today? I don't see any in person. Okay, we're good. Thank you very much for your public comments to both of you. We'll start off with our first agenda item, which is a presentation on APS Career Center Project Use Permit presentation and discussion by Olivia here today.
Oh, actually, we have Jeff Chambers from APS and Jasmine McDuffie from Centec.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being with us. Go ahead.
A reminder that this project has been approved by the school board, and these are the project requirements that were approved back in October of 2022. In terms of project schedule, we are in the use permit process. Last week we had a meeting with the PRC, and of course we're here with you. In terms of the project, it's an overview of the campus site plan. The project consists of a new ACC. That's along the bottom of the page. The bottom of the page is South Walter Reed Drive. To the right is 7th Street South. To the left is 9th Street South. And on the top of the page is South Highland Street.
What is ACC?
Arlington Career Center. Please go back to the previous.
Oh, sure.
School acronym.
Sorry.
The new ACC is the Arlington Career Center, the bottom of the page. The existing Arlington Career Center will remain in place, but we are demolishing a portion of that building to make space for the new parking garage. The scope of the project includes a new curbless environment, which you see in the two-tone shades of gray, and that is a pedestrian-friendly environment. The only vehicles that will be allowed on that site will be buses, service vehicles, and vehicles that are used for the automotive program in the school. In terms of the facilities, we also have a number of green spaces around the site. A lot of those are bioretention areas that are along South Walter Reed Drive. We have a new synthetic turf, which is item number 3. And we have, as part of the project, which is starting this summer, providing new play fields around MPSA along South Highland Streets, and it goes along 7th as well. And we'll get into more detail about what those facilities are. I want to call your attention to on the east side, or excuse me, the west side of the new Arlington Career Center, we have a tree boss, which provides some shading opportunity for students and pedestrians that are on campus. This is a bike-friendly environment, so there's a number of bike racks or facilities on campus, as well as a covered, secure bike facility in the garage. We have the main entrance to the new Career Center is right across from the Columbia Pike Library entrance. Right there, thank you so much. And then there's a secondary entrance off of 7th Street. We pulled the building back off of 7th Street to create additional green space, which was in response to comment we received from APS and community. Next slide. But just looking at the enlargement area around the MPSA, I want to call your attention to some of the renovations that are being done this summer.
That's Montessori.
Arlington. So there's a new grass turf field that's being planned on the south side of the building, or south side of the plan. There's a new synthetic turf field right off of South Highland Street. And there are 3 play areas designed in this plan, 1 for ages 2 to 5 and 2 for ages 5 to 12. There's also a half-court basketball court adjacent to the new grass field. We're trying to maintain and keep as many of the existing trees as we can. And so the area in green represents the play curb, the play area curb. We have 2 in this particular location, which is on the corner of South Highland Street and 7th. There's 2 entrances to this play area, and this is the play area for ages 2 to 5. Those entrances are accessible, and there are a number of play equipment pieces that are located within that enclosure. And the shape of that, again, is in response to trying to maintain as many of those existing trees as possible and trying to keep the equipment out of the drip line. There's an existing fence that's going to be reused along South Highland, and a new fence added in to connect to the 4-foot fence along 7th Street. This is the first of the 2 play areas for the ages 5 and 12. This one again has the area in green represents the play curb, the extent of the engineered wood fiber ground. There's an accessible entrance to this facility and a play area. And again, we're maintaining existing trees as much as we possibly can in this area. This is the second play area for ages 5 to 12. There are 3 accessible entrances to this play area. And you can see on the left side is the half basketball court that's being added adjacent to this play area.
It's right here.
In terms of the new synthetic field on campus, that field is a field that's 195 feet by 184 feet. It is surrounded by some retention areas, but also some planting strips. And just across from that, as I mentioned, to that plan south is that tree boss, provides a number of shading opportunities.
Tree what? What do you say?
Tree boss is a canopy tree.
BOSD.
BOSC.
BOSQ.
Bosque.
Oh.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
What is it?
I'm looking at
It's
that.
a grove of trees.
Okay, thank you.
Closely spaced canopy trees that create shading underneath.
Dictionary definition, a clump or grove of
It's
trees.
Right, thanks, Peter.
Spanish bosque is a forest, actually.
Okay, there you go.
Tree grove.
Grove.
You've got the underground soil for that?
It's a stabilized gravel that we're
Excellent.
Surrounding this playfield is a 4-foot high fence around the majority of it, but we are placing a 12-foot Island Street and returning that to the north and south to keep any sort of walls or equipment in, and that can go into the street. These are some three-dimensional views of you know, in a drone on South Highland Street, looking down towards the new Arlington Career Center, which is the tall building in the background. Field is on the left side, and so that shows you the transition from the 12-foot fence to the 4-foot fence. They'll never have buses going in both directions in this images, but we wanted to show you that at some point there will be buses at different time periods that service the existing Arlington Career Center and the new Arlington. The image on the left shows you what it would be like without the buses, which would be the majority of the time. Pedestrian friendly, bike friendly environment, site furnishings for seating, bike racks. Just for context, this is an aerial view of the new Career Center. The main entrance is located with that canopy on the lower left side. And that's right across from overhang for the library, Columbia Pike Library. So just in terms of context, the building is stepping back off of South Walter Drive, which creates additional green space along that boulevard. And it also keeps the scale and the mass of the building back by a scale that's more relevant to the buildings surrounding the site and across the street. Some views of the herbalist environment looking back towards the new Career Center. The playfield is on the side.
Is that a impervious surface there? That's a lot of it. What is it? That's what I meant, impervious surface.
It's our
Yeah, so the net green space loss is considerable. What you're seem to be saying is, well, yeah, we put up tree boxes, but we are losing so much hard surface here that's why you put in the bioswales. Or is that why?
Well, this is the existing bus.
So, okay,
So we are.
so now you have a chance to make it an impervious surface or
But the field that we're putting in is impervious,
But not the walkway.
but the walkway is not, but the walkway actually drains into the biosphere.
that's what I was going for. So that's what was forcing the bioswale piece.
Yeah.
So there's no way to get around so the concrete was there before and it's still gonna
It's
be
currently
there.
asphalt.
Okay, asphalt to concrete.
It's actually a glass lot now.
Okay, so asphalt parking lot, is that what we're
Yeah, it's a huge
talking about?
parking lot.
Okay, so it's going from the asphalt parking lot
We
to
have some phasing diagrams. I'll
a
show you
concrete,
those.
throughway for the buses.
And for the parking lot.
And it's also,
And you got tree boxes in the middle of that. Okay,
But sorry, to add on to that, so is the intention of this walkway just to be for pedestrian use, bike use? Do we expect like emergency vehicles to use this, things?
It would be emergency vehicles, it would be weekend fairs, it could be a market, it could be lots of things. It could be, it's going to be
Like a farmer's
focused.
market.
right, but it's not a traffic thing. It's one of the things where the school buses come in or the vehicles for the school,
Service.
the service vehicles come in, right? Okay.
These are some additional views showing the entrance off of South Walter Drive, and on the side is to the additional facility that's going to be available to recreation is the gym that's located on the third. These are floor plans of proposed new Arlington Career Center, and the gymnasium's on the third floor, highlighted on the top of the page. So below of the third floor is showing the gymnasium in the context of the other instructional spaces on that floor. And the gymnasium right now will have regulation basketball courts. There will also be storage for volleyball standards. And there are retractable bleachers that will be able to accommodate between 160. There's, in addition to the main basketball hoops that service the main court, there are 4 additional and have court hoops going in the opposite direction and a divider curtain. Right up the space.
Okay, I'm gonna go into quickly, go through the phasing plans, just so everybody is aware. The comment that was made with regard to the hard surface, essentially, the current site is very much impervious in the sense of in the middle of the site, you can see all of those parking spaces. Currently, there are 2 sections of relocatable trailers. So that's pretty much all impervious at this point in time. The Montessori Public School of Arlington on the Highland Street side is currently a piece of asphalt. We're also, again, replacing that with turf, synthetic turf. So we're pulling that out and basically putting and then on the east side, plan south side, where the ball field is, that's going to be where those playgrounds are being created, as well as up around the corner for the primary play area on 7th and Highland. Essentially, the primary section of the building is along Highland Street, so that's why the primary there. There's currently gardens and a koi pond in the corner, inside corner. That all remains of that school. And then we will be putting in a grass play area in addition to the hard surface basketball court and the mostly engineered wood fiber, thank you, around play structures. But we're also creating pathways that are bonded fiber so that they can be fully accepted.
So when you say the play areas, that's for like the 5 and under crowd? I didn't know what the
one, yeah,
I didn't, when you say, is that general play area or is it specific for the Montessori school?
it's specific for the Montessori school, but all of our playgrounds are open to community use after hours.
But it's really it's for smaller kids as opposed to the 11-year-olds. I'm just trying to get the range for the.
There's both.
Oh,
Yeah, on
you
the,
cover, both ranges are covered, like the
Correct.
little kids and the big kids? Okay.
yeah, if you go back to.
I'm looking out for my grandkids.
Yeah. Let's be, go back here. Okay, one more. This is the primary play area to the left of that. Highland Street is at the top. 7th Street is on the right. So those are all play structures for the primary, the younger
Okay.
kids.
All right.
Okay, and if you go to the other side of the building, we have a large play structure that is being added, which is actually more play facility than they currently have, which is out along South Walter Reed Drive, pretty much separated from the building. And they have primary and the upper elementary altogether, which has always been a problem. And then just plan south of this is the next slide, is this play area. So there's multiple structures and multiple pieces of equipment. You can see that meandering path, that is an accessible path. And then the engineered wood fiber is in between that. To the left is a half court basketball to replace the court. It was actually a full court now, but it'd be a half court in this location. So.
Is it a paved path?
Pardon?
Is it a paved path?
It is a rubberized surface that is accessible. We actually do our playgrounds now. We have SEPTA, special education, PTA, and other groups get involved in our playground structures because we want to make sure that we're making them as accessible as possible. All playground equipment says it's accessible, but is it accessible for the needs that you have? Because it doesn't, because you've got hearing impaired, you've got visual impairments, you've got physical impairments, and you want to try to tailor it to be the best for what the facility is. So that's one of the things that we're doing with regard to this. So it's a much improved play area than we currently have for that facility. The one thing I do want to say is, as we do this project, it's a very full site. On the lower right-hand side, there is turf area, grass area, but it's very uneven and they don't use it a whole lot because of not short footing. In a natural grass area that had buildings on it at one time, had relocatables there at one time. And one thing I do want to say with regard to the phasing is we have to maintain the operation of the Montessori Public School. We have to maintain the 5 programs that are in the existing career center, which has grown, and with Arlington Tech is a growing program, which is why we have the relocatable trailers on the site. So there is a need that this facility, this secondary program is our only secondary school that has not been improved. So that's why we've been working through this to try to get there to the point. So essentially what you can see on the bottom there, you see Fenwick. That building will be removed and the new building will be built where Fenwick is and along South Wallery Drive as was currently shown. So our first phase, we will be creating those play areas because they have to be in place for Montessori in the fall, including the turf field, so that they have those spaces to use when they come back to school. Have to make all of those modifications and change. So you can see that's the existing condition. Next slide. There you can see the playground areas. Again, we had anticipated starting the field work in May 1st. At this point, we think the week of June 5th, we would have final approvals. We have to get the turf grass in so that it establishes itself before kids are on it. And those playgrounds would be structured. And at the same time, next slide, please. You can see we've made some modifications to the parking lot. We basically have to maintain parking for the staff that is currently there. So we have approximately 250 spaces for the school. We currently lease some spaces in the ECDC garage, on Island at 9th. And as we phase through this, we'll have to rent some additional spaces because of essentially using the entire campus as we go forward, and again, maintaining those programs. So the Fenwick building will come down. That demolition will be starting midsummer, and it will probably run into the fall. And then we will be bidding the project in the fall. And currently, our schedule is to start construction in January 2024. Next slide, please. So this, you can see, this is what the site would look like during construction. The building will actually has to be built from the Walter Reed side because we have to maintain all of those programs, all of the parking, and all of everything that is going on the site has to be in place as we do this work. So we have traffic patterns that modify and change as we do this construction. At the same time, Complete Streets is being designed for Walter Reed. We are cooperating and coordinating with the county on Complete Streets. There's some discussion currently that APS will actually take on the construction of Walter Reed between 7th and 9th and possibly more. But again, process of having an MOA created for us to work with that because of all of the coordination. It's a very complicated project. It's a very complicated construction site. So
I have a question about the construction. Sure. One of the things that we run across is we hear presentations and they have green space in them. And then when the construction turns around, it turns out that there are these double secret, nobody knew about underground utilities that absolutely prevent, ironically, the inability to put trees in that green space. And I wonder if you guys would be sure to check.
We have, we've actually done some ground penetrating radar in some of these places because we know that there was the original school on that site was where the current green space is. We found footings and foundations. We all have a storm line that cuts across the corner of the site, which is relocated.
Thank you very much.
We're doing the best.
You know what's underground. Okay.
Well,
nobody really knows.
We know some of what's
I just wasn't looking. I was looking for like it's It's not like a main electrical line to the Pentagon or something.
Well,
Right
we
across.
need to stay away from the AT&T building. We know that.
Okay, okay. No, thank you.
Okay, next slide. So anyway, once that building is operated, the students will move out of the existing career center and move into the new facility. And at that time, the relocatables will go away. So that space becomes parking again, and we will be able to reduce some of the parking that we have at ECTC. And we are building a parking structure. Working again, we don't have the final number of parking spaces, but county, because that's determined with the S3A zoning, is determined as part of the use permit, as well as setback. It is 5 stories. Current building is 2 stories. Needless to say, there's a lot more square footage, a lot more programs that are in there. By programs that work out of that school, plus the adult education, which we don't really count as part of that, but they use all of it. So essentially what we will be doing is taking down the high bay spaces, the current shops and labs, because when that building gets reused, it would be intended to be a school building, but not necessarily need the shops that are currently there. We can't use the shop spaces for phys ed space because the ceilings are too high. So that's one of the reasons why we're taking that on. The only shop that remains is the current video or TV studio. That remains just because of the construction where it is happening in there again. So that construction will work, and the streetscapes will be done as part of where that work is. So in the first phase, when the career center is built, from the side of MPSA down to Walter Reed and across the front, and probably all of Walter Reed will be done with that initial construction. As part of the parking structure, you're going to see changes on 9th Street. Again, we're currently working with the county with regard to Bike Boulevard. Process of, we're going to have protected bikeways. What are we doing there? Because there will be parking structure that has entry there. Just concerned with that. We also have the parking garages is turned a little bit on an angle, and we've created a green space or forested area on the west side there, which we have high trees as well as understory trees, which is intended to make it more of a green space. And once this work is done, we'll move to the next phase, which once we have the parking structure, we will be able to take out the parking lot that is in the middle of the site, and we will finish the public way as well as the synthetic turf field, which is intended to be used by phys ed classes. The space on the corner of 7th and Walter Reed is where that sometimes took place, but again, it wasn't very usable. So this would be fully usable. We don't have the lines finalized, but we have had some people request that we put a square where we have the higher fence so it can be used for ball and kickball and other things
Pickleball.
like that. We don't, not pickleball.
I'm just
So
being topical.
Next slide, please. So then we get to the final condition. We have actually shared this with a lot of students. The students are very excited that they're greener in the inside of their campus versus the hard asphalt surfaces that they currently have. And if anybody's been out there with cars, buses, service vehicles, pedestrians, it's a nightmare. Which is one of the reasons why we're making a change to less pedestrian, more pedestrian friendly. One thing I also need to say is the school board has said with regard to their schematic design, the next step, they're going to be looking at it, I believe, in their next CIP, which is going to be coming out next summer. They have stated that they want to relocate the MPSA program into the existing career center and remove that building and make it a field and green space. So we don't have it budgeted. It's not in the CIP. So this is just where we are stopping, calling it the final of this project, but it's not the final of the campus. They will be looking at that future. We've already started doing some studies on reusing the Career Center for Montessori Public School. So there'll be more coming on that in the future. We have done a study to show that we can put a size soccer field at the location of the MPSA with additional green space. And at that time, we may also look at how you get to the service area, and maybe we can get service vehicles off of the campus as well. So again, we have to keep all the programs operating, so we need to look at that. The other thing that we've done is our center is constant temperature loop, which could be in the future connected to geothermal. But we don't have the space to put any wells at this time. So again, that's something in the future.
So is that third building part of the use permit or potential part of it?
Essentially, the use permit is for the campus.
Okay.
And the way the county puts the use permit, currently we have some partial use permits, I believe, on this site. We don't have a full use permit. In fact, there are multiple properties right now on this site, which are all going to be combined into one campus. We will have a use permit. So all future work here will have to go through the public process, and we will have to do amendments to the use permit.
But it'll be more of a coordinated, because it's all one.
They'll be
Correct.
making that use
Right.
permit change, yeah.
Yes, it'll be a use permit
Yeah.
change as we go forward when we know and have defined what the budget is and what the projects. Yes,
Can you remind me what this building? Garage,
that is the ECDC garage.
this is a pretty big garage.
Yeah, it's a garage.
Yeah,
I'm familiar with that too.
yeah, that's what I was
We've been
thinking.
there.
So have you given any thought to using the top floor of the parking garage for a field? Or for pickleball courts, or for tennis courts, or for basketball?
We have not structured an additional floor on that. However, the way this garage is structured is half of it is flat, and then the other half is a ramp. So there are spaces that could be used in the garage.
You mean on the roof?
There is no roof. It's open to
Okay, there's no roof, but I mean, there's gotta be a top floor,
there is a top floor.
which has cars on it.
It does have cars on it, correct?
So I'm saying, don't put cars there.
Well, we would have to build another floor.
Okay, you
We
have to build
need,
another
we,
floor.
basically, the parking spaces are based on need, and community input and the BLPC.
Okay,
How many spaces are on the site now? Total.
250.
Well, there's roughly 250 that we've been maintaining.
And the garage, as is anticipated, will have 300.
Yes, that is correct.
How many are you renting from
We currently have ECDC, we have 100 spaces, but during the construction, we'll be renting another 150 from them to maintain this.
So the new parking structure is designed.
Correct.
When you guys pull out of the east section, that leave alignment to spaces?
Well, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with ECDC. I mean, they have a building there. And if they fully occupied that building, they would need it. But they are not fully occupying that building.
Is this the end of your presentation? Can we open it up to
Yep.
questions? Okay, cool. All right. I can, yeah, I can hit this off. So, Melissa, we'll start with you virtually. Was there anything you wanted to add and participate today? Or any questions you had?
A little bit, but not much. I do think I share some of the concerns expressed about green space, but I do understand the limitations. So I think people can speak more eloquently to that, probably more than I can, but I just kind of generally also a little bit concerned about that.
We should
That's
make that a letter for sure, Melissa.
Yep.
I'll start off if that's okay. I want to address to Dr. Burns' question during open comment. Can you guys speak to the way station changing and why that was chosen?
It's on blue
I
line.
think that was related to Tim's one.
I was like, I don't see a way station here. Thank you. Okay, cool. All right, great. Yeah.
Okay, we know it's underground, but we didn't know there was a way station.
Great, okay. But I think my first question then for you guys really is on how we can get that strong language into the plan right now to promote as much additional green space in this development as possible. I think as a Arlington County property, we really want to demonstrate that we're maximizing get out of this. We will write this in our letter as well, but would love to hear about the commitments that are being made holistically beyond just the fields, on like planting those great tree, what were they called, bass?
Bus.
Yeah.
Grove.
Yeah, gross.
I think that, we had a couple of lively conversations in PFRC last week as I said, the board has made an action. I think that your letter should encourage, the board to follow through with that. Again, until it's in a CIP, it doesn't exist for designing construction facility. But they made that commitment. The board at that time made that commitment. So they encourage the board to follow through with what they talked about to, reduce this. We did, if you look at the first slide of that presentation, the board actually up front did make a limit on the size of how many students would be on campus.
Yes, okay.
Minimize this. All right, there you go.
And then I think my one other comment for our commission is, since we will be writing a letter on this item, I would encourage that if you're interested in being in the editorial committee, I think one other point that perhaps we can put a point of view on here is what we would like to see with the potential new development project that isn't yet budgeted for the MPCA building. Right? MPSA building.
Montessori Public School.
Thank you.
Yes, took me a
And-
long time.
Because I think that it's clear that they'll go kind of traditional here with thinking about like field use and stuff like that. But if we want to be more creative and thinking about perhaps a mixed use possibility, or can make an argument away from traditional field use to public open space, we can try and craft an argument there in our letter on this project.
Which space are you talking about exactly? The current MBSA
Yes.
site?
So
Nature like.
yeah, so they mentioned that that is not in scope right now for redevelopment or rescoping, but the long-term plan, I understand, is to also demolish that building and add to more field space right now is the.
Well, they said field and green space. There is room to put both there. So the playgrounds that we're putting in around Montessori, again, if that existing career center is used by Montessori, those playground spaces will be surrounding the existing career center.
And we can really advocate for a mixed-use space that includes park for that Montessori crowd, but perhaps we also ask for more.
Yeah, essentially what we would envision, I'm speaking for myself, I'm
Yeah.
not speaking, that I would envision that the field that we're creating now would end up becoming a Montessori play space, and the phys ed space for the career center would be in a new field where MPSA currently is, as well as additional green space and trees and whatever that would go there, because it will not take the whole space to put the field.
But again, we're hearing, we're hearing some phasing here. So this is I think our opportunity to inform that phasing. We're looking at building field use today. When that building is gone, there needs to be room for more than just field use, right? So we have to. Joe.
So how many, it looked like the cap of students is 16,000.
No, that's for the ACC building. I apologize. I thought the total number there, but they have a cap for the campus. It was in the board action, and I don't remember.
And how does it compare with the current?
It's more than the current enrollment because the new career center has a larger population. It's about twice as many students as the current building.
Right.
But again, the cap would not allow fully occupied all three buildings. Why they put that cap in? Full school occupancy of all three buildings on this. Right.
And
walls and maintaining. Oh, the
Right.
building has to come
They
down.
want to prevent APS from being able to.
It's like 2,400.
Three schools
The
on
jam
that
and
property
other
at the
school.
same time.
So that's the point of that.
Correct.
So that's our assurance. that-
Well, again,
That's some building.
the board passed that cap too, so I mean.
But I mean, in conjunction with the promise to take. That's it. Am I
Right.
getting the gist right? I don't have the resolution.
Mhm.
but That's what it says.
Well, I mean, there is a promise to take the building down.
The board passed, when they approved the schematic design, and you have to go back to that board action, or you can go back to that board action.
That was
Two, I think.
last year, and Sergio. Yeah, there it is, right there. Yeah, there you go, Sarah. Good
There you
looking.
go, thank you.
And Sergio, has been kind of overseeing this project to that.
So you can go back
On
and
the
see
PRC.
the actual motion.
So at that time, we had representation for this decision making. But now we've been in like a little bit of a hiatus. Now they're coming back. Soon we'll go through the actual site plan.
Can I ask one
Yeah,
question? Can you tell us what percentage, in a tree canopy cover? Or what the,
We don't have those numbers, we're looking into those numbers, but we don't have them.
You think it'll be more or less? Speaker said, using. That's true.
I can't say definitively.
Most of the green space now is open. There's not much tree canopy except along the edges. Based on the plans here, it seems hard to imagine. You know, it seems to me it would go up quite a bit.
Okay.
both from that edging and this plan
From
groves.
And from, I mean,
Yeah.
I imagine that some of them will come down along the edges during construction, but
Right.
it's like they're planning a lot more down the center and down these walkways.
Around
Yeah,
number 2 and near the.
there's not much. It's a
oh, sorry, no.
big parking lot, a baseball field that's not very well cared. Quite a bit, and a big chunk of green open space in the bottom right that is basically a lawn that is sometimes mowed, but not all the time.
Well-
It's a chain link fence around it.
I'm very interested in the total tree canopy cover on the campus because this campus is in one of the 10 equity neighborhoods that has among the lowest tree canopy cover in all. So,
Yes.
I'd like to know if the tree canopy cover of the campus
Mhm.
is gonna improve the tree canopy cover of that neighborhood.
Yeah, I again, we'll calculate that. I don't know
Okay.
whether it's off the top of my head, but I can say that there are going to be a lot more street trees than there currently are. There are a lot more trees being planned at 7th and Walter Reed, and again at Highland Street, and interior wise, there are a lot more trees.
It would be really good. if
Yeah.
You're gonna have to answer.
Because there's also trees in Bio Wales as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, ahead of SPRC. Great. I think I'll take it to Adam and then Peter.
So I have a couple questions. Do you know what the size of number 4 new grass field is replacing the grass field? The baseball, the outfield of the baseball field? Do you know what size that is?
At the size of that.
I don't remember seeing, sorry.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Good question. Back another one. I thought there would keep going.
It says something in graphics, but I can't read it.
Perhaps we can get that.
Yeah, I don't want to take it, if you don't have the answer right now.
Did you have any follow-up to that?
Yeah, so my other question is, so all of the playground and space is being created for NPSA to replace the stuff they're losing due to the new ACC building. Do you know how much money is being spent on that? And when do you expect that building to be demolished? If all goes according to plan?
How much money is being spent?
Spent on all of the amenities that are being built around the school.
I don't have the budget off the top of my head. What it is, but we are planning on reusing the playground equipment. Program,
So the expectation is that would move over.
which is the largest portion of dollars spent.
Right.
But we told the vendor that we plan on being able to being installed. Generally, you set it in concrete. They said they can put sleeves around the structure so that it doesn't mean we won't damage things and have to replace things. But the goal would be to.
Okay. Okay. And then my final one is about the new 3. So I know, Jeff, we've talked about this back. The baseball community is going to be losing a well-used but poorly maintained field earlier than we expected. That's a separate issue, which I won't bring up today. But I don't see any evidence that number 3 is going to be available for baseball. I mean, all the designs, I know they're not final designs, but there's nothing there that shows me that could be used as a baseball field. And I'm going to be sending you ideas and information about how that could happen. But I just want to reiterate that given that we're losing this field, and the fact that if MPSA is taken down, there could be another soccer field put in there. Again, we're losing a diamond field, which is well used. So I wanted to just read how important it is to make sure that 3 is available for both sports.
Thank you, Adam. I think that's a really important fact to bring in here. Do we even want to hold, I'm putting out there, do we want to hold a point of view in our letter, perhaps that a priority in the phasing of taking down Montessori School is replacing it with a ballpark? Because this is where my mind's going right now. Looking at the right-hand side, I'm enthused that we're keeping as much of the current space that is not developed as temporary, what we see is right now, temporary parks and additional green space land. When the building comes down, it opens up a can of worms of possibilities. And we want to maximize, obviously, that space continually being used for green space. So in our letter, we propose what we think phasing should be, including perhaps replacing the baseball field and encouraged more open public space. That might be a way for us to insert our opinion before this plan gets written into action and their opportunities.
I volunteered to be on the editorial.
Love that. Thank you. Peter, did you, that you're good, right, Adam?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Well, going back to the parking garage, it looks like it's about 10% of the land area of the whole site. And if we're losing, as Brian said, we're losing green space. That seems to be a prime way of getting some green space on that roof. The roof Lubber Run is spectacular. Incredibly heavily used, looks terrific. The whole thing's, I think, really successful. And I think I'd love to see that as the template for everything that the school system does from now on. Parking is a big negative for everything we're trying to do with parkland. And here we have an opportunity. Put it on the roof.
So I hear 3 good points just for a budding editorial team on this letter. I hear 3 great points immediately from Jill, getting tree canopy to be prioritized in this plan, specifically in this campus plan. 2, providing some sort of roadmap for the phasing of the MPSA building, including a ballpark, baseball diamond park, and encouraging more green space. And then 3rd, looking at using Lover Run as a blueprint for what potential can be done with static garage space.
With the roof of that.
Yeah,
garage.
specifically the roof, yeah.
I have a few questions. Do you all have any sense of about how much impervious surface there is now on the site?
No, we're calculating that. I've gotten that was asked last week. Process.
Do you have a sense from how much would be anticipated if this design would be go through?
No, we are in the process of calculating that. Your landscape folks are doing that. Okay.
You mentioned the gym.
Mhm.
You pointed that out. Is that anticipated to be available for public use?
Yes.
That's on the 3rd floor of the building?
Correct.
Does APS actually expect to give the public real use of that? Because they're often
Yes,
pretty,
just like we do with the Heights building, which is 1 story down.
What's the Heights
Hmm?
building? What's the Heights building?
The school in Roslyn, the
Oh,
HB
okay.
program.
And the one thing what we did is, I know the Parks was unhappy that.
why did you choose the synthetic field?
Basically because it's going to be used 24/7 by schools and the community. Brick field will not survive. Otherwise, I would prefer it to be a brick.
That's not a field.
Any other, go ahead.
As they did, just a couple of things, Peter, on your point. One big difference between Lover Run and what this is that parking garage is commercial, not objective. And so the access to the roof is real simple. It's at street level. Whereas this one, it would be, how many stories is it right now? 4. So that would be a 5th story. So unless they were considering making a person on the ground, I mean, you have a very different situation there in terms of access to that space. Right, of course it does, yeah.
Well, putting it underground, but putting a roof on. I mean, we're facing this really ugly and underutilized parking garage. A 5th floor roof could be a great place for pickleball courts.
Yeah, I'm not arguing against it. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that that's one difference between.
Oh, yeah, of course. But we gotta start using our rooftops, and the county has to take the lead. This is a public roof.
Another possible use is solar. I know APS, I think solar is planned for this, right?
We essentially, we try to use our rooftops wherever possible to make them available for solar. We don't, Discover is the only solar we own. Everything else is a power purchasing agreement. So we would offer this to a company that would do it as a power purchasing agreement. The one issue with this building is, number one is, again, to save space, we compacted it, went up, not out. So we have a lot of special systems, auto body painting, auto tech program, culinary programs, animal sciences. There's a lot of ventilation requirements. So that if you looked at the renderings, you'll see that there's lots of equipment on the roof. And we do have.
No, the building.
The building, not the garage.
Correct, of the building. And one thing, we did actually have a sawtooth roof, music area, which we've gone to just a single slope so that could actually be so we would like to see that happen, but at this point, it would be a power purchasing agreement. It would not be part of the project.
Is there
That's
like
millions of
$1
dollars.
of the current building?
Pardon? That is actually a possibility. We probably want to see how we're going to reuse the building, where we're going to make penetrations. Don't want to add millions to the project by not having ventilation issue or having ventilation issue how we construct it. But that has a very large, clear roof at this point in time, and it probably could use a recoating on it, and you have to have roofs that are relatively new or have a 25-year warranty on it before they're considered. So essentially, our roofs that get re-roofed, make sure consideration by our purchasing.
Were you talking about the parking garage?
Well, I was talking about in general, any of those, but
Any
in
of
park
those,
rights is a
okay.
possibility too.
I mean, there's a whole nother commission.
Yeah.
We have to look out for green space.
I agree,
Good
Peter,
sports.
fully agree. We can definitely mention both as an option, but I push for rooftop garden as our commissioner. Okay, great. Do you guys have a date that this is going, I'm thinking about our letter. Do you guys have a date that this is going to the commission already in the agenda
To
right
the
now?
county board,
Sorry,
yes.
to the county board.
Yeah, it's June, the June meeting.
June meeting.
Is
It's the
that,
third Tuesday, second Tuesday?
it's this
It could
Saturday,
potentially be Saturday or Tuesday, so it would be either the 10th or the 13th.
10th or 13th.
So pretty soon, actually.
Is it close to being a net zero building?
No, it is not. We are looking at a lot of electric operations, but it's not a net zero. A net zero is you have to have a low EUI. Find it very difficult without geothermal and without solar.
So is there a natural gas plan for use?
There is some, but it's minimized.
Just to take the roof thing a little further, you know, obviously from your body language, et cetera, this is not something you to think about doing, but is there a way of estimating the cost of what adding a strong rooftop to the garage would cost?
I mean, we could do an estimate, but we're currently at budget.
Yeah, you're at budget. So I mean, that would be part of the conversation of what the Parks Department could maybe put into it or whatever, because we'd be gaining some park space. But so can you actually try and figure out what that would change the budget? Or is there a way of saving costs in some other design aspect of the garage that, you know?
Again, we actually used a garage consultant to minimize the footprint of it, to maximize the green space on the site already.
Okay.
And the configuration that we've come up with is probably as efficient as we can get it.
Okay.
Get the spaces that we believe we need based on our traffic study, which is also available. Seeing.
I mean, obviously it would help us, everybody, the whole county to know what having, I don't know what that maybe like. It might
No
be
idea.
half an acre, you know, what that would cost to get a half an acre green space. We have a 30-year plan where we have to get
30,
I mean, we have to get 30 acres in 10 years.
yes.
We have to get 30 acres and they're not there yet. So this is.
We're like at a little over 3. Okay, we are way over time. Please go ahead.
Wait,
We are way
really
over time,
quick,
so
one
go
more
ahead.
thing.
Let's just
So
wrap it
one
up.
of the, I know DPR staff have been on the group that's working on this. And from my experience I also serve on the Facilities Advisory Commission, Council for APS. And I don't feel that DPR staff have been doing their job very effectively, because a lot of things that have been coming out of this didn't come to us. We're just hearing, obviously, getting the now. For example, the baseball field that's being moved, it could have been even now, but it's being taken out of commission as of June 5th, which is before the end of the baseball season is over. And there's been no word that's gotten out to the about this happening. And I don't know who the staff member was who was on it, but I think that something needs to be said about the fact that there hasn't been very good representation.
Oh, hello. So so I was a staff member on it. We just found out, gosh, I believe it was the end of last week that field was coming out of, that field was coming out of use. And right now our staff is looking into how to, find other opportunities for the youth leagues that are using that field currently. So again, we just recently found out about that field coming offline.
Thank you, Bethany. I mean, I'm adding that to my notes as another point for us to say, encourage increased participation by DPR staff in this planning, since facilities will be shared among these properties. Thank you. Anyone else? We'll be talking about letter writing at the end of this meeting, so tabling it for now, but thank you very much for the presentation today. We really appreciate it. Any follow-up will help us in our letter writing, but we thank you for presenting to us today in person. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for teaching us too. Now we know more.
We love learning on this commission.
I'm gonna use that word boss.
For the next slide, that's right. We're using bots. We're taking that.
Bus. Yeah. How about more bus? Yeah, that's what we should say.
So you need 30 acres of boss, right?
30
Yeah.
bots. There we go.
That's the ideal.
That's a good segue.
Yes, it is. This is actually a great segue. So our second presentation of the evening, which we still have 40 minutes for, so we're not late on time, but second presentation of the day is on biophilia in Arlington. And I see we have our guest speakers virtually. Great. Laura and Chris, thank you. Yes, I'll hand it over to you. We are big biophilia enthusiasts here, so excited to hear about your presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are delighted to be at the Park and Recreation Commission meeting, and it's been a number of years. So I think the last time I was there was when we were presenting the courthouse vision, and we still have a parking lot. So we always have more work to do. So my name is Chris Kreider, and I'm the supervisor of the urban design team. And we are part of the planning divisions, but we support interdepartmentally DPR and DES transportation. We also work to educate people about design and better urban design. And one of the things that I've been charged with is supporting the biophilic initiative. I do that with Irina Lasik from DPR, and she and I actively participate in the network. I want to quickly introduce my colleague, Laura. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us. So I work with Chris Kreider and also in the urban design team. But beyond that, I also review the landscape plans for special site plan developments and use permits as well. So I get into the little bit of a finer grain detail on the biophilia in Arlington.
Yeah, so Laura is going to advance the slides, and I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction, and then she'll sort of take us into the meat of the matter. First of all, Arlington, for those who are not familiar, we became part of the Biophilic Cities movement, so to speak, and in 2019. And really, it's about, in our resolution, we're making a commitment to becoming and continuing to be a biophilic city. As you'll see, there's many things that we've been doing well in the past and many things that we can do better. So tonight we're going to sort of focus on a little bit of background, but then also particularly site plan projects, because that's where we see the greatest amount of change occurring in Arlington. So as a partner city, we're a member of a network. Next slide. And presently, I believe there's 26 cities, and we have boxed out that we have a number of regional partners in this, and we share a lot of information. The purpose of the Biophilic Cities Network is really to engage in best practices, share information with one another, and each month we participate on a call. Sometimes it's very early in the morning for our folks on the other side of the planet, and sometimes it's late in the afternoon. But the point is that we are all committed to doing this goal that is very innate in human nature, and that is a connection to nature. And one of the things the studies will show that there is an important role that nature plays in our livelihood and our healthful living. And so we certainly embrace the greener aspects, but we also really embrace the human element, the human benefits. Next slide. So part of our commitment to biophilia is really looking at what were called 5 municipal indicators. And these are required as members of the Biophilic Cities Network. They're broken into 4 broad categories: biophilic institutions, planning and governance; biophilic engagements, participation and knowledge; natural conditions, qualities and infrastructure; and finally, human health and well-being factors. So it really, as you can see, it really touches on a number of important issues. And just taking the first one, for example, what we count as we report both to the BCN and to the county is how many plans in the past year have incorporated biophilic planning and design. So we'll talk a little bit about some of those. Biophilic engagement, participation, and knowledge. As you'll see, we're working very hard internally to increase our knowledge around biophilic design, and hopefully that translates into our working with the community. And finally, you've seen a tremendous investment from the county in green infrastructure. And this is both an important investment in our sort of economic benefits of preserving our investments, but also replenishing and restoring our urban habitats. And if you look at other cities, one of the member cities, Toronto, they have a very extensive ravine plan, looking at those green areas because they're being asked to do a lot of things. So as we look at that, how do we do better? And then finally, as I mentioned, probably most importantly, we're looking for ways to increase access for everyone. For example, our Affordable Housing Master Plan, which is going to be updated soon, does not talk about that connection to nature. And I think if there's ever a demographic that could benefit, it's those that are, in less economic beneficial means and having that access to green spaces. And I'm sure everybody here on the commission appreciates that. Next slide. So as we report these annually to the board, we're sort of making sure that we are keeping track. So what have we been doing in those few years? Well, we started out with a biophilic pop-up event, and that was in 2016. And this was really community activist led. This was not led by the county, which is a wonderful aspect, I think, of Arlington, is it's folks like you that really sort of bring this to the attention and can rattle the chains a little bit harder sometimes. So it first appeared in our Public Spaces Master Plan as a recommendation, and taking that as a lead, we explored the opportunity of joining the Biophilic Cities Network. And from that, we formed an interdepartmental team to identify those municipal indicators and to also start to begin to implement many of those in our day-to-day work. And as part of that, we hosted this Biophilic Arlington Symposium, which was an internal event. I think we had about over 150 staff participating virtually during the middle of COVID over a 2-week period. And it was really about learning from each other what we're already doing in the county, and then also looking at peer communities. And as I mentioned earlier, we do attend those BCN meetings on a monthly basis. So in terms of some of the things we're doing more recently is Laura and I and the urban design team, we host a monthly design lunch. Last month, we had a representative from Toronto talking about their Green Cities initiative, and importantly about their green benefits program that they use with site plans. It's just point scoring, and it's focused on energy, but even more focused on biodiversity. And we're really looking at that as perhaps a blueprint for expanding some of the things that we want to see in the SPRC process, which we'll talk about later. But as you see too, we've already incorporated and are starting to incorporate it in all of our planning documents, and some of those are highlighted. So next slide. So Laura is going to talk a little bit about that site plan design review process, and then take it from there. Laura, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So yeah, I'm going to talk about biophilic implementation in relation to the special exception site plan review. So I know you guys are actively involved in a lot of public review of public spaces. Sometimes those are involved in site plans, sometimes they're not. But I wanted to sort of dive into what we do a little bit from the urban design team perspective. So, you know, Arlington has been a biophilic community for some time now, even before our commitment to BCN. This is mainly because of the people who live and govern here. But, you know, before we joined the network, before my time at the county, projects had been built and meeting some of these 14 patterns of biophilic design, all on their own volition. So these are projects that were built in recent years, but prior to our commitment. So we've obviously had a vested interest in a long time. So whether intentional or not, designers have been, inspired by nature since the beginning of time. So again, whether intentional or unintentional, we are making changes at various scales that are hopefully furthering our commitment to this biophilic place, Arlington. So in this presentation, we're mainly going to speak to the intentional biophilic designs in Arlington throughout the 4.1 site plan processes, and really the urban design team's role in that work. So we can also touch on and answer some questions about admin changes and by right processes as well, if you'd like to get into that towards the end of the presentation. So we, the urban design team, see plans throughout every stage of the site plan review process, from the moment the applications are submitted until county board approval. So Chris and I also have the good fortune to see these plans post county board approval through landscape plan and facade submissions. Just to give you some background on what we do, we also follow the plans through post-construction and inspection. And then, you know, the owners of these projects are obligated to maintain and uphold the approved designs throughout the life of the site plan. So I can truly say that these plans never leave our desks. And any changes to the approved plans require administrative changes and further staff review. So we are going to talk a little bit about, what we see and what questions we ask as we go through this process. So applicants have the option of submitting a conceptual site plan for internal staff review prior to the formal application. So this is not required, but it does give the applicant an initial review by planners to highlight major policy concerns, give an overview of county initiatives related to their site and development. So this is just some clips of some concept plans that we've seen, but they, these are very conceptual. So the plans are submitted at varying levels of plan detail. They may show general open space. They may show context of the neighborhood, building height, density, and sometimes materials. But this is our foot in the door to start asking how these designs are supporting Arlington's biophilic design initiatives. So after that, we see what you see. So along the way, we see what you see along every step of the way. I'm just showing this plan to kind of highlight the progress and highlight that engagement matters. So there's many conflicting concerns and a lot of stakeholders during the SPRC process, and designs can change dramatically from the feedback that staff and the community give during these design reviews. So we're seeing the same imagery that you're seeing. And our job is, from a policy perspective, is to make sure these projects are meeting the minimum requirements of the site, everything from the sector plan guidance to streetscape requirements. But our job more broadly as urban designers is to sort of scale our views throughout the design process and then help the applicants make the best design decisions for the public. So as we all know, biophilic design can be very subjective. So it can be hard to quantify at a conceptual level. So it's not a GFA calculation. It's not the number of bike racks that are provided on site. It's much easier to sort of quantify the benefits of biophilic design after spaces are built and established and experienced in real life. And it requires a commitment to the applicant to not only design these spaces, but to construct them, to maintain them, and then to care for the facilities and the materials over time. So we ask a lot of our public and private spaces, and it requires this stewardship of these ideas in the long term. So as you all know, I'm sure you've all seen these, we've been gifted these 14 patterns of biophilic design. And these are the concepts that staff is actively wrapping their brains around all the time. You know, given these concepts on a blank slate, they may be a little easier to realize. Given them on a development site, these concepts are subject to many constraints. So we hear more generic language, we see more generic imagery, and a lot of what we find is that these concepts are squeezed into spaces that are serving multiple functions. So just like the things that you guys were talking about today with APS. So, you know, we ask a lot of our streetscapes, meaning that face of building to back of curb, and sometimes our standards can be constricting. So there's people, planting, utilities, dogs, they don't always commingle well. And there are a lot of practical concerns that go into these sort of seemingly natural designs. So I'm just going to pick one small thing that I know I speak to a lot. Anybody who knows me knows I speak to this one a lot, but green wall elements. So we are seeing more and more of these on incoming plans. And I just wanted to speak to how they're interpreted in sort of the biophilic design realm. So it's important as it relates to what we see and what we get. And all the steps in between the site plan process and the long-term success after build out. So like we're looking at the image on the left, we see these sort of creepy, crawly hanging things off of the rooftops. We see the carpeted green walls on buildings. They're very painterly renderings. They're sort of, they're showing what we all hope for in as the building matures. And some of the challenge that we're sort of hit with right off the bat are that the words and imagery are sort of lacking in a detail or an industry definition. So we all may be looking at the same image, but talking about different things, and thus getting a very different built product. So these are some of the words and labels that we see on plans. So these are the words that you've seen on the plans too. So by the Macy's, I'm not sure what they were calling this element on the top of the building, but these other buildings were saying, you know, vertical green element, green wall, living wall, biophilic element, but not being very specific about what exactly that construction looks like and what exactly they're talking about. So unless we know what questions to ask, we might not all be getting what we envisioned from some of these renderings. So we need to ask the applicants to be very specific about what we can expect over time, such as, can native plant material even grow vertically as it's depicted in some of these images? So what we have seen mostly in Arlington thus far has been the ground-based system. And I love this image, this little graphic. Vincent from Urban Forestry found it, and I will give credit to it if we ever figure out who gave it to us. But it is, it's great to sort of show these different systems. Mostly we see these ground-based systems, which is cabling or trellises on the side of a building, and then plant material at the base. We are starting, though, to see more and more of these wall-based systems, which is the one on the far right. These are very, very intensive. They have irrigation integrated. They have lighting integrated. They have a vertical planting media. So they're expensive, but they're very intensive, and they look like what the rendering is showing. We rarely do we see the trough systems. Those are a little bit more like window wells. Sometimes we see them on parking garages. But these are very different costs, very different construction needs associated with them. And so understanding the difference here is important. So those are the questions that we're kind of asking. So yeah, you may think that you're getting the image on the left, and you may be getting the image on the right. So there are always, what I like to say is there's always finer grained details that we get into post 4.1 approval. We are looking at civil plans, landscape plans, facade reviews, where we're really, really getting into how these things are construction. But we have a responsibility to ask what infrastructure is needed to achieve what's in these renderings. Whether that's soil volume, irrigation, the orientation to the sun, proximity to utilities. And I know you guys are all asking these questions because I heard them all tonight too. So these are all the details that may not be designed yet, but if we're asking for them and we're putting them on the radar, we know that they're going to be designed accordingly. Chris is going to speak to some building materials.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing is that the marketplace is already starting to deliver some these biophilic elements, and just to sort of take you from left to right, while the focus is on bird-friendly glass, I think it's also part of sort of the biophilic scope. And the far left image is from the Aquatic Center. The one right next to that is from the Springs, an affordable housing project. And finally, the one at the bottom is actually a fritted glass that APS used at the Education Center. So in that case, it's actually serving two purposes. It's helping to reduce the energy production, as well as providing that patterning that birds need. And in terms of some of the other elements that we seek in terms of biophilic response, we're seeing a lot of analogs, and the picture in the bottom there, just below the word analog, is actually from from your space there. There'll be some more of this type of glass. But Lynn Myers was hired as she did the public art pieces that introduces this frosted glass, and it's all referencing that. To the right of that, you'll see the newly poured bridge at West Glebe Road Bridge that is connecting Alexandria and Arlington. So this was just poured in the last week. And the metaphor here is really picking up on the flow of water through the river and the bubbles that it generates over it as it hits the rocks. Just above that, the bridge design that we're working on for the Mount Vernon, again, Arlington Road Bridge is once again, and this one is inspired by the tails of a red-tailed hawk. The feathers. And as you can see in the drawing, the bottom half is actually this formed concrete, but the upper half will be a grill. So just really, opportunities where there are places where a lot of visibility to reconnect people, both sometimes literally, but also more figuratively. And finally, the image on the right, and Laura's going to talk a little bit more about this project. We're starting to see where the developers are, trying to create these spaces for their tenants. And we're really excited to see some of these examples because I think they represent how, even in an urban environment, we're really trying to make that connection to nature and recognizing that both from its economic and environmental benefits, but also, just human quality benefits. Next slide. So one thing I did want to feature, as Laura mentioned, we do these inspections, and we recently, actually, I think Laura probably made 7 or 8 trips to the Amazon HQ2 project at Metropolitan Park. But you'll start to see that the corporate America is really starting to embrace this. The image in the middle is actually on an upper level floor. I think it's like the 13th or 14th floor. And what they're doing is they're putting plants that are native to the Shenandoahs because they operate well at this high wind, sort of high elevation exposed environment. So creating those types of spaces and places is becoming part of creating a sense of opportunities for talk or meetings or reflection. And then they're even introducing, and as you see in the upper right image, these are benches in the lobby area that will ultimately house plants, taking on these organic anthropomorphic forms. And then, of course, in the center and the bottom, this is sort of the early stages of the transformation of Met Park, which is probably one of the most biophilically designed spaces I've ever seen, and really look forward to experiencing that in the coming years. So I'm going to turn it back over to Laura to sort of talk through one of the examples we just mentioned.
Yes, so I'm gonna actually go a little bit in reverse. So this is the SUR, and if you haven't been down there, I definitely encourage it. There's a lot of great furnishings and elements there that are using warm natural products. So this is an interesting one because it was a little bit outside of the 4.1 process. So this actually came into us in 2020 as an administrative change to the original approved design in 2007. So why I kind of wanted to speak to this is that this is what, and this is might be a little hard to see, but this is what the applicant could have built. It's sort of, it's not very illustrative. I wasn't here in 2007. I don't know what the process looked like, but it's showing, some of the plans are showing trees in containers. There's not a lot of detail on what they're providing, but on their own volition, so they could have very well built this, but on their own volition, they came in with an administrative change to really up the ante, right? Like they're doing something better for the public. They're doing something better for their tenants, like Chris had said. So this is a really interesting project. They are using these intensive green walls underneath the breezeway here and outside in their front entrance. And they look great in winter too, just a note. So, what can we be asking that helps us realize these 14 patterns of design in construction in the 4.1 process? How can we interpret these big concepts on papers? This is kind of what we grapple with to try to get that biophilia from out here to sort of built and tangible. And these are just some ideas that kind of go through my mind every day when I'm reviewing plans. So, this visual connection, non-visual connection to nature, you guys had already brought up in the APS project, the using rooftops. So some of the questions that we can ask early on in the 4.1 process is soil volume. So maybe we don't know what the plants are yet. Maybe we don't know what how the space is totally going to be occupied yet. But if we know that the space is on the second or third floor, maybe we can ask for more infrastructure to support more soil so that we can get more grasses, more pollinators, something else up there. Whereas if we get through the 4.1 process and we haven't really defined that structure is needed for that level of soil, then did we miss an opportunity? Because at that point, that cost could be through the roof to sort of accommodate that. So these are things that I'm sort of, grappling with from the design review and the 4.1. So these are some ideas. The idea of water feature is another one. We always want this presence of water, but we go back and forth with the health department on how we can make that a design element, not have it be accessible, have it be accessible, whatever that entails, also a cost related to that. And what does it look like in the winter time? So is it biophilic in the winter when the water's not running? So these are just some questions and ideas that we have. So moving forward, how are we doing in our design biophilic design initiative? So Chris has already touched on some of these items on the left here, the things that we're doing currently, and what's on the horizon. So we are meeting with the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission next month, so that we're going to take this presentation to them just to kind of keep them updated and in the mix. But just so you know, I know that the FNRP is coming out, and there are some implementation items in there related to native plant requirements and the zoning ordinance. So those are things that might take a little bit longer to get implemented, but they're on our radar. There's something there that we hear the public, we understand it's important, and we're moving forward with them. And then the other big one is the biophilic design narrative. So this is something that hopefully we're going to be able to ask of applicants moving forward on the site plan process, that they will be able to, we're going to have them provide a narrative statement and probably a presentation during SPRC stating how their site is meeting some of these biophilic goals. So that's where we are now, and we just keep moving forward, hopefully. So I'm really grateful that you guys let us come and present and sort of speak to what we do every day. And we appreciate what you guys do every day. So I don't know if Chris has any other notes he would like to say, but we would love to open it up to discussion and hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much. I mean, I just want to say, I think this is a very needed presentation for our commission, so much appreciated. I would even go as far as to say, I would like this exact presentation perhaps every 6 months
It's
or
a
so.
foundational presentation.
Totally, and we want to have more of these SPRC 101. This is the bread and butter of how we can be effective. And so just a reminder that the presentation will be available online for us to access and reference when we go to SPRCs ourselves, but let's get this in the burner like as a repeated item. Okay, I'm sure we have questions, so please raise your hand.
Go with Melissa.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's start with Melissa on the phone first.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful presentation. I really appreciated how, yeah, the wall plants always bothered me when I see them on these renderings, because I'm on the Boston Macy's SPRC, and I asked about that, and they were like, yeah, we don't have the plant list yet. We'll get you that plant list. I'm like, when? So when you're constantly told we don't have the plant list yet, do you have a good list of plants we can just put out there? Because I could look it up myself, like native Virginia plants, but are there ones that really work well that we can kind of constantly reference in these sorts of meetings?
So that's a good question that comes up a lot. And I think it's a little tricky when it comes down to very specific species, only because sometimes 3 years from now, some of that stuff isn't available. So we always reference Plant Nova natives. That's our go-to for all of our applicants. And I can even put the website in the chat too. They have different categories based on what you're looking for. So if it's wetland environment, if it's climbing, screening, evergreen, and it's all native and native to this region. So that's our go-to.
I love the suggestion of asking about soil level as a way to dig deeper as well. Yes, but besides just sending them to find what the best resources are to select species, is have you really thought about what is actually going to go into the ground based on your planning of things like soil level? Because they are not thinking about that. We know that. Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Any other points you wanted to make? Thank you for that.
No, just that, yeah, this is a really great presentation, and I will definitely look up this again after for more resources.
Yeah, Colt, why don't you get started?
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much for doing this. We are quite challenged with securing as much green space as we can in Arlington, and we're not making any new ground in Arlington. And the only way we're going to get it is through site development plans and these plan reviews. It's a real challenge, though, to come up with what is a biophilic lens? How do we, Interject goes through this too. I mean, do we have a lens that we can use to focus and apply to these site plans? We could, and I don't know, I don't want to be flippant and call it a checklist, but we certainly need a solid framework that we can all understand. So I'm the bio-friendly bird window guy, okay? So I kind of got that market. But there's got to be more than that. And we need help with understanding what the lens should be. We've got these 14 principles and everybody salutes. We're done. We have to do more than that, but we don't know how to do more than that because we're not planning and engineers. We're citizen body that makes recommendations, doing the best we can. So if we had some clearer guidelines that we could use, boy, I'd sure take them, and soil volume is one of them. And they don't have to be, they could just be generalities, general suggestions of things that we should look for. It would really help. Thank you.
Sure, and I can just comment to that a little bit. I think that from what I see, and I was in the private sector before coming to Arlington 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago. So I understand that there's, you want something that's like very quantifiable. So when you're looking at like furnishings and things like that on site, like you want it, the soil volume's a big one, I think, because we really want to make sure they have the infrastructure from the go. To be able to make these things viable in the long term.
Thank you so much for this presentation. It's very helpful. Can you hear me? I want to point out that we, along with two other commissions, wrote a letter to the county board in March of 2022, pointing out the need for some change in process that would enhance the ability to enforce, if you will, the biophilic principles. And one in particular came up for me just this month when I asked for the plant species, can you please give us the plant species? And they said, well, we'll try, but we're not required to do that. And I said, I know you're not required to do that. And that really sticks in our craw because that means that you can go ahead and get approval and then at construction phase, you can change all that. So I would just like to, I'm just saying this to direct your attention to that letter and ask your help internally. It sounds like maybe this narrative that we're talking about could speak to some of these issues, but the more that can be done to change the process to enhance our public ability to require some of these things and then for you guys to be able to. And then I'll say that. And then the last thing I'll say is we had a presentation recently about noxious plants. And as an aside, somebody said in Delaware, they have recently come up with a great new law because of Doug Talamy's work there. And they do have a long list of plants that they certain plants that are getting taken out of the trade entirely. So that's an aside, but anyway, thank you for the work that you're doing and promotion.
Laura, could you back up 2 slides? I think let's put the 14. There you go. I think you guys are on the right track. We want to give you the opportunity because you have a very important role in this conversation with the developers. You can ask for things and say things and do it in a way that we can't. So the more that we can help you, give you the tools, the better I think the conversation can ultimately be. And what we're looking at is, as Laura mentioned, is we're going to ask the developers to weigh in on all 14 of these. And we really don't want sort of a checklist from them. And we've all been in these meetings lately where they talk about a street tree as if it's biophilic, and it's not, right? Now maybe 3 trees together.
And a bosque.
Right. Now we could be talking, right? So let's call it is what it is, right? That's a street tree that is not biophilic. But I think using this list, so they can start with that and have that conversation. And as the plan evolves, they start to refine where they are going to do it and why. And I think the stronger that connection. But a critical part of this is when it comes to the SPRC is as they introduce their sort of biophilic response, is that you're asking the kind of questions that Laura is asking, right? And that we really drill down, because it's not that we're cynical, maybe, but this is a transaction for them, right? It's not a transaction for us. So we're coming at it from different places, and they see the trends. They see that their future residents would love to be more in nature, so they're responding to the marketplace. But oftentimes they're just responding with a pretty drawing, and it's not enough. And so that's where really that due diligence that we together with the community need to do to make sure that they deliver, or they just take them off the drawings. And we've had some projects where we said, are you really going to plant balconies with plants? Well, it's apartments, we can't maintain it. Then stop showing them to the public, because it's not representative of how that building will be. But on the positive note, as I said earlier, we're already seeing the marketplace to respond. And Arlington is in a great position to really press forward, but it's going to take your support. So I wanted to ask the folks in the room, what are the things that you were thinking that we maybe didn't ask, that we could be asking, or that you could be asking? Any thoughts from the group about how you could assist in this conversation?
Yeah, go ahead.
Questions too.
Yeah. Start off with this one. We can go back to your questions too. Yeah.
I mean, something, so I live in the Clarendon Courthouse neighborhood. I live in a multifamily building. I've been in all of these SPRC meetings for all the developments around here, as well as the LRPC meetings for the special flood studies and all of that. And approaching those conversations as a member of the PRC as much as a resident in this neighborhood who does not have a yard, does not have access to recreational space, and thinking about, what does biophilia mean for me as a fairly representative member of the growing demographic in Arlington, right? Residents. And, there's a difference between, oh, it's pretty, there was a meeting recently where someone's like, oh, there was a lawn. And it's like, well, that's biophilic. And it's like, no, it's not. It's green and it's plants. It's not biophilic, right? So thinking about the ways that like biophilia can exist, but also be something that pedestrians, cyclists, and people running errands can engage with it. Whether that's a sensory experience by touching or smelling, or, edible biophilic design is like my goal, like fruit trees and stuff. I know that that's an implementation nightmare, but like things of that nature, I think are like a real platinum standard for me as a resident in this community. But more so just to echo what everyone else here has said is I think citizens feel like we need resources to be able to advocate for these things. If Arlington doesn't have like standardized design guidelines. It's circumstantial and based on neighborhood. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with coming to these conversations of like, well, what is the standard that's been set by other projects? What is supported by architectural best practice? Like as citizens, we don't necessarily know. And it's hard to find that information because it's in this sector plan in like one paragraph and this site plan from 10 years ago. And so it's like hard to piece all of that together.
And to add to
all over the place.
Yeah,
but-
we'll go back to your other questions, but I think to add to like requests that we have, I think one thing that's come up a lot this year is understanding how we can be a voice in advocating for trade-offs between different solutions. So you provided a great example when it comes to on-building trellises or whatever we want to call them, wall gardens. But we also see it when it comes to permeable, impermeable surfaces. We also see it when it comes to things like field use versus open public space. There's all kinds of trade-offs that like we just can't be informed enough to talk about it at SPRC meetings. So like adding that to a robust design language is what guidance is. Anyone else on feedback on what else we need for, I'm going to kick it back to Sarah for other questions. Sarah, kick it.
Yeah, I think like, and you spoke about this, the biggest frustration, I've been through several SPRC processes now, I feel is the public involvement ends when the 4.1 plans are approved.
Yeah.
And there is not a lot of space for engagement in that project moving forward unless you're a member of that civic association or a resident of that building. And it really struck me, the Clarendon Commons, the outdoor mall, they recently redeveloped their public space. And like that came to us as SPRC, and it wasn't an SPRC process, but being able to provide the feedback of like, oh, well, this part isn't working, and we can tell you that, and you can change that moving forward, and you incorporate that into the redesign, and then see that happen. Like, it would be great to have that type of space also for other types of developments that are privately maintained. And I know that's not something that exists yet, but that's just something that I've been thinking about. Of like, we probably know faster than staff when the green wall doesn't go up the way that it was supposed to, because we're shopping in the neighborhood as residents. A space to potentially explore.
Come back to us. We want to come back a lot as much as we can. Anything else, Sarah? That's it. Anyone else have comments? Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, so this whole discussion reminds me of like food, how language is used to make things seem like they're different than what they are. And it's basically greenwashing. What we're talking about here is preventing greenwashing from happening on these site plans. And one thing I was wondering is are you also looking to, I hate to use the word force, but require maybe developers to have a standard language that they should be using, that they shouldn't be calling things, something unless it actually is, or just making sure that there's a common language that when you see something, it means something as opposed to mean something else. So that's my first question. Maybe you can respond to that first.
Yeah, so I don't know that I can require a common language necessarily, but I always say the devil's in the details. It always is. And those are the things that we look at. So when I see that in a rendering, I immediately go to their plans, immediately go to their facade rendering and make sure that they're actually showing how it's going to be implemented. And if they're not, then that's my first comment. Is this a vertical system? Is it a green wall system? So those are the words that I use. And again, they're different from everybody else's, but is it a green wall system, meaning it's functioning as a system on its own? Or is it a cut in the ground, maybe 6 inches of soil and a trellis? And that's like directly how we ask. So I think that's part of staff, as what we do is look at all of those details when we see the renderings and make sure that that's whatever they mean is what you guys are seeing. So,
And I think too, Laura, that, the Harris Teeter on North Glebe was a classic example. They showed it on the elevation, and then we looked at the details. I'm like, it's AstroTurf.
Yes.
I'm like texting Laura. I'm like, it's not even, it's plastic, right? So we asked them, it's like, do you realize that this is not, when we went to the SPRC and there was a lot of conversation about this green wall, and we're looking at these post 4.1 drawings, we're like, whoa, wait a minute. The community's expectation, and we can roll the tape, is that was going to be a living green wall. It was actually going to be natural. So they changed it. But we also, we don't want them to produce something that doesn't survive, right? So we'd almost rather them not put something in unless they're going to do it right. And I think that's also where the community can also weigh in and say that, either A, it's not going to work, or B, if you are going to do it, we expect it to meet this, what you're showing. And I think that's another role for you all is to ask the questions, because they, oftentimes they don't know, as Laura said. And the more we can get them to commit, the more likely we are to get it.
Yes. All right, y'all, we are 5 minutes over already. Any last comments that we want to get in today? Adam, please go for it. I mean, we have the time.
I apologize. So one of the things that I've learned from this is that when I'm in these conspiracies, I'm going to start asking, what is your plan? Whatever plans you have. That's something that I have not even thought about.
It's fallen off my vocabulary too. I used to ask it, and I know I haven't.
And a related note is I feel like, and this maybe is for you, Trudy, or for the group here, I'm wondering if we can start thinking about whether it would be really helpful to have a guide to being a PRC member or serving on one of these SPRCs.
Yes.
Because I found myself with the ARVA one that I was like, I'm not sure, what, things I should be asking for and like that. I mean, I know some things, but I'd be more confident if I had some common language, some common things that I knew that.
Yeah, with this as a primer, we're planning on our July meeting having an other business section focused directly on this. And I would propose that perhaps we use that time to have a live shared brainstorming document. And we start adding in that stuff. I think these 14 points make it in. I think we put in some questions that we would like to ask, some generic questions, and then we can add it, have it be a living document that isn't official, does not go into anyone but the commissioners, that we can circulate and add to, create versions of for our uses here. And I think that's a good outcome. We were talking about this morning, so let's do that.
Yeah, I happened to find out that E2C2 has some kind of list that they
if you can get
ask the developers, I think even before they have their first meeting.
If you can get that, we can add it to ours.
They were asking me after the meeting, could we jointly work on something about?
I think a good proposal would be to get the input.
Collaborate.
Yeah, get inputs from others, and then we can share it with Energetic. Ultimately.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yes. Anything else for this discussion? Thank you guys so much for being on the call with us today. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us and thank you for
Yeah.
all you
Our
guys do.
Our enthusiasm is real. We're really past 9 p.m. because we really, this, I think I would say is like one of the more impactful presentations we had this year. So thank you so much for joining us. We'd like to see you again in 6 months if possible. For onboarding new folks and getting a refresher, perhaps we can share with you what we've come up with from that brainstorming session as well.
Well, thank you. You know, your support for this is very important to us. And the more you can sort of speak to that, I think the more beneficial we can all be. So this is a partnership. And we welcome the opportunity to talk to you tonight because this is something that we love. And the more people that we get behind this, I think the more successful we can be as a community. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we still got a little bit of agenda to go, guys. I think we can aim for 9:30 as a good closing time. Let's try and rigorously get there. I'm going to move us to staff report, which we have
Okay.
2 items for today.
Yes,
Right?
so I wanted to first mention, I think it was mentioned during Laura and Chris's discussion. We are going to have an update plan by DPR staff on the FNRP update. So they'll provide us an update on that project, on the process, public feedback that they've received since the last time that they met with this commission and others. So that is coming up in June. There are a few other items. I can just go through a few of them. Max Ewart, who's on the call as well, will be following up with a discussion on the facility naming at Highview Park related to a diamond field there, to potentially Alfred Foreman Senior Field. And I believe the commission saw that item or heard about that item a few months ago.
So this is a voting item that
That's
we
correct.
will be able to do virtually because our next meeting is a virtual.
Yes, that's a good point. The next PRC meeting is all virtual, so there won't be the need for an in-person forum within this room. We will also be potentially hearing the ARVA, as you mentioned, Adam. I believe the applicant will be providing a presentation related to that. I mentioned the FNRP, and then potentially a presentation discussion on the food study, which CPHD staff will be providing.
What does that stand for?
I think that's related to the outdoor cafes and the potential for various other uses of rights of way and other forms of
Sidewalk
yes.
cafe situation.
I want to be very careful with what
Yeah.
is like
Right.
the potential for that. So and I know staff will be speaking towards that in more detail in June.
A packed virtual agenda for June.
Yes. And then also, if you haven't been to Pentagon City, Met Park is open. So
That'll
please check it out. The dog run is open, playground, forest walk facility, the community table. The county board actually approved the use permit last month for a new open air market in and around that space. And I believe their first date will be June 24th. So please come out.
Thank you, Marco.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna zip through other business. So thank you all for providing commissioner reports to Marco as usual. We can continue to do that. I'm gonna move this through other business and try and get quickly. So APS Career Center letter will be written. I've taken notes on points here. I'm going to volunteer Sergio to be the writer here, but I don't know if he'll be able to. So Adam has already raised his hand to be on editorial. Would anyone else like to be part of that? Great, thank you, Sarah. I think that's good. If anyone else would like to join, I'll take it. Peter, great, thank you. Wonderful. So you see an email go out today for me. Since we have that June 10th deadline, my goal would be to get something written by Sergio by the end of the month or first. Then we can edit for 10 days, send it to the full commission, send it to the board by the 10th, which is 10th or 13th when we anticipate it'll go to the board. Okay, next, August field trip. Do you want to talk about this? We're set on Alcoba.
So we are going to have staff provide us a walking tour of the new or renovated Alcoba Heights Park. So we're really happy about that. They actually do have a lot of flexibility. So we have 2 dates already identified within the calendar, August 15th or the 22nd. We're able to make either one work. So
they're both Tuesdays in the
Yes.
middle of August. Both work for me. I didn't have preference. If anyone had any preference there, there's also not board meetings on either of those 2
That's
days. Check that. So
And for these particular meetings, for those that are new within the commission, we don't act on official items. We meet earlier, actually. So we'll be starting the walking tour around 6 p.m. Probably meet for about an hour, act on the minutes from the July meeting, but that's really the only official business that we'll have at that meeting.
so it's a real field trip.
Yes.
No worries. So anyone have a problem with either of those dates from the get-go?
Or a preference.
Yeah, 'cause I do. Please.
I guess I have a preference for the 22nd, if no one else has a
Yeah.
problem with the 22nd. My preference would actually be
Okay.
Okay, on the 22nd, you're out of town. Anyone else have any tiebreaker preferences? How about you, Melissa, on the phone?
Sorry, I had to step away for a moment.
No worries. Is August 15th or 22nd a problem for you for our field trip?
I cannot attend either as I'll be on a business trip for 2 weeks during that time.
No worries, no worries. Thank you for the heads up. Okay,
Sorry.
we'll figure out what works best then. Thank you guys for that feedback. Okay, great. So that's that. Okay, appointment of PRC co-chairs for the Bill Thomas Award. So we've given it a little bit of thought, and I'm doing the appointment now. So Melissa will definitely be serving. We like to, so Bill Thomas Award is one of the main awards, the only award that we give out. It's one of the main things that we vote on and adjudicate as part of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Like to have a seasoned member like Melissa and a new member. So I'd love for both Nelson and Alex to serve if you guys are open to it, to help Melissa with adjudicating the award. There'll be a team of 7?
5.
5?
Mhm.
So 8, including the 3 of you.
No, so it'd be five team members within the committee. So 5 members within the committee.
Got it. Okay, got it. So we'll have a panel of folks. Melissa will kind of walk you through that, but excited about the applicants. You'll be able to get on the floor and understand what makes a volunteer a good volunteer. And the bigger news, even bigger news, is that this year we're going to be doing a big party to celebrate this year's winners, upcoming winners, as well as the winners from since 2020. We haven't been able to celebrate them. Yes, and we've chosen to wait until we can actually have an in-person celebration. We couldn't do that last year because the building was under renovation still, not because of COVID. So this is our year to fully celebrate. So I want to make sure that once we get that date on the calendar, that's socialized well, we can all attend. Because when we did do it in the past, it was a great moment. We usually got in the paper about it, things like that. So bring it back to that level.
And typically they're usually scheduled during like a recessed county board meeting date, either before or after. So just be on the lookout. We'll be planning that out as we move forward.
Great. Okay, moving to our last items, I'm gonna table the potential pickleball opportunities letters, what we're calling about this. Mark Lincoln's suggestion to possibly site pickleball courts in a variety of locations. We'll save that for next meeting when he's at the meeting. PSMP IC didn't have a whole bunch. We did have an update on PSMP from the county last month. I can share those, the presentation with you guys. We can even talk about it next month too, if you have any questions about that. We're looking good. The acreage thing is rancid. We're like at a little more than 3 acres out of our 30-year commitment, and we're 5 years in. Or sorry, 30-acre commitment, and we're 5 years in, halfway through. Like, do they think that Army Navy Drive is going to be sold? Like, what are we going to do here? Like, I just don't get it. But that's
Page for one.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's all to say that it was fine to hear about it, but we're very concerned. The progress is not being made, obviously. Okay, last item then, Peter, I'm going to kick it over to you. So this is the Quincy Park letter. Have you provided a redo draft that puts it in letter form?
Yeah.
I think that the first.
Yeah, I sent that to everybody.
Okay.
But I brought a few, I don't have enough for everybody, but you
Okay.
can share.
I think that the action item for tonight would possibly be, just because of our timing today, let's circulate this letter. I'd love to get an editorial committee for this letter that Peter has written. It says workshop it, the text. Is there anyone off the get-go right now who would be interested in being in that editorial committee? We don't have any deadlines for this. Great, Alex, thank you. Anyone else? I would like to also be part of it.
I'd be willing to serve. I just caution, I know Peter and I have some differences, but I think that this is closer to what but if I like to be on it just to provide some input. I won't serve as like a veto.
No worries.
I'm not gonna say, no, you can't do this.
I think we need the feedback to be a unanimous letter, so
Right.
let's do that. Yeah.
I'm happy.
Okay, so I'll say this. if everyone who just raised their hand, including myself, to take a look at the letter and provide feedback to Peter directly, perhaps we can do this with centralizing feedback around Peter. We don't have a deadline again, so perhaps we can check in on this item again next month with how that editorial process is going here.
Dude, when did you send this, just so I can grab my,
I can also put it in
I
the top.
printed on April 4th.
oh, you, on this date, okay, got it.
Oh, okay, you said in April. Okay, maybe I can push it to the top of the inbox then, and we can try and gather feedback before our June meeting.
Yeah, let's circulate this before the June meeting and vote on it.
Oh, we don't need to vote. It would just be a unanimous letter that we all
Well,
agree.
it's
Yeah.
unanimous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Peter, if I could ask you to, or if someone could get an electronic copy of this.
Yeah, I'm gonna forward it to everyone. I'm gonna forward Peter's note from April to everyone.
Well, we don't
Shortly.
normally vote on.
We don't, and I don't want to vote on this letter either. I
It's
think
unanimous consent.
Yeah,
Okay, whatever, unanimous consent.
It's like consensus.
Right.
Okay.
Without objection.
But I mean.
Because, I don't want to set.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to start doing it.
All right, great. I'm gonna find that and I will put it at the top of everyone's inbox. I'm looking for it still, but I will find it. It might be better, Peter, if you don't mind. Yeah, if you don't mind, Peter, because I'm having trouble finding it, if you could send it to the full PRC, and those who have self-identified can provide feedback to Peter digitally.
Are you sending out a new email list? For the-
It's already updated. It's already updated. So if you use the
On the
PRC,
webpage. Oh, just on here.
Yes, if you use the
So,
PRC
okay,
member
yeah,
group
yeah.
email
then it'll
channel,
give to everyone. If you could just
Um,
forward it to that, Peter, that would be great.
Nelson
yeah,
and
yeah.
Alex are already on it, so.
Okay,
Thank you, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Yes.
okay, great.
I have one quick item of
Yeah.
of the business. This has to do with my, my email about the, last meeting.
Yes, we talked about this at the beginning, actually. So go ahead. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I missed it. So I did read through the rules, and I think that I just didn't notice some of the language. It was because of the last meeting that I was focused and I saw that. I think that the word hybrid meeting is problematic. And I don't see anywhere in that language it talks about a hybrid meeting. I think, you know, what it is, it's an in-person meeting that we allow guests to show up.
Yes.
And, you know, it's clear that commissioners have to ask for permission to participate electronically.
Yeah, so let's go over what the guidance is since you missed it, just so
Yep.
we can get clear. So you're right. It's a misnomer, not great. Arlington County, we must have an in-person quorum no matter what. The in-person quorum is what unlocks optional virtual participation for folks like Melissa. But if we don't meet the in-person quorum, it's shot. We have no chance of.
Why do we have a
anyone
meeting at all then? If we don't have a quorum, how can we even have a meeting?
So you can have it, well, the parameters for that particular meeting then would just be a discussion amongst the commission members that are present in the room. So you cannot act on any particular item. So for example, minutes, you can't act on minutes. You can't have a vote on a potential name or a memorial plaque or anything else that's being
Sure.
considered by the commission.
Sure.
We can't have discussion about pushing forward options.
That's right.
Letters, things like that.
Sure, but why is it that the county attorney has suggested that it's not okay for, in that discussion, for someone, a commissioner who happens to be electronically, who may have been approved ahead of time to be, why can't they participate in that discussion?
Because again, since there isn't an in-person quorum, that person cannot participate per.
It's not an official meeting. It's not an official meeting without an in-person.
So
So you're violating freedom.
That's right.
how are you violating it? That's what I don't understand. How are you violating?
We're not a real public meeting without a quorum. And so then we can't have the virtual participation because we're not in a real public.
I would suggest,
More than two of us are. No.
yes. So I would suggest if you want more information about this, and I had mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting as well. We have a county board office staff liaison or aide,
I can
actually,
send you their email.
Sandra Calisto Mendoza, who works with county board member Takis Karantonis, and is also who liaises for our commission. So be in touch with her, and she may be able to provide you more information based off of what the county attorney's office has provided me, but also what is allowed within the Commonwealth of Virginia. Because again, these are the parameters that we're, working with. And unless the Commonwealth provides us more latitudes in the future, this is all we can do at this point.
Right. But it's an interpretation of what the law is, not necessarily what the law says. But the county attorney has interpreted this way.
What I'm saying is I am following what the county attorney has provided us as guidance. So if we do otherwise, then we may be in it.
Sure.
We may be.
I understand why.
Yes.
I understand.
I'm at the point where we have to follow the rules for it, which are stupid. The rules are stupid. But we have to follow them. That's the limiting factor. Like, we're even talking about things like the difference between 12 members and 13 members makes a difference in helping us meet the quorum, even though the value is still 7 people. We have to, it's just like so mixed bag here. We're good. We're good today. We're good today.
We had 10 actually.
Yeah, we're more than fine. But this is the bureaucracy of it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that I.
No, that's fine. I think it's good that we're covering it. Okay. I think we're done. Thank you, everyone. We're gonna close the commission meeting. So we're good.
We have.
Yeah.
Did anyone say anything about the thing that I spoke about?
It's not on the agenda today, Dr. Byrne, but we can definitely bring up Blue Martin Park at a separate meeting. Unfortunately, we've had a really packed agenda today, so it's hard to cover all the topics, but we can table it, and I've noted your public comment for future discussion.
So we do it the next meeting?
Sure, we can bring it up next meeting. That'd be great.
Okay, so just put it on the agenda or something. Maybe invite Mr. Cirque to come here.
I don't think we can do that for next meeting. We'll have to talk with staff about that, but we can get to that.
A very full agenda already for June, but we'll
find a way to get it in this summer.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's close the meeting and then we can chat. Yeah. Great.
Right.
Meeting closed.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Before you run off,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, who are you?
I'm here, a homework assignment.